Big round of applause for Slash. Welcome to the Live Lodge and welcome to Australia. You only flew in this morning?
This afternoon.
This afternoon? How's that jet lag?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure...
The jet lag's not so bad coming here. It's going back. It's debilitating. You'll be fucking doing something and all of a sudden...
I'm sure that's not going to happen tonight because all these people are going to keep you wide awake. You've been to Melbourne many times. Do you have any sort of specific memories of this city in particular?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I remember playing here back in the day with GNR, but more recently on this solo thing that I've been doing, I've been hanging out a lot more and sort of really getting to see the city and doing a lot of gigs and so on and so forth. And this was the first place that we played after we played our first gig at the Roxy when we came over here in 2010. So it's very sort of like, oh yeah, Melbourne, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And prior to coming down here, you just got off, you're doing some solo dates in the States and you're doing the Aerosmith tour as well. And Aerosmith is a band that you've got a long relationship with, from Rocks being such an influential album and then touring with them in the 80s, seeing them in the 70s and touring with them again now. Do you remember the first time that you met the guys, in particular Joe Perry and Steven Tyler?
Yeah, let's see. Talking in front of all you people is a little nerve-wracking. Hold on. Right. Let's see. I remember specifically the first time that we met was backstage. I can't remember what city it was. I guess probably the first gig. Steven came back to our dressing room, and he was, you got to know Steven. He's very energetic and very sort of like talkative, and that was the first time I ever met Steve Tyler, and he was very sweet and very cool, and that was great. And then Joe, I met later on because of course Joe was a little bit more quiet and reclusive and guitar player so it took a while until I met Joe, but it was somewhere in the early part of the tour that I met him. And the coolest fucking guy you'll ever see. It's amazing how just naturally just cool he is.
And you are of course coming back in February next year for Soundwave.
Yeah.
Which is great news. I think
I'm so excited about that.
I think 2011 was the last time you guys played out here on Soundwave. Do you have any memories of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Slayer was playing, so I have very partial to Slayer. But Queens of the Stone Age was playing. It was a great tour. It was a lot of fun.
All right, so the good people here, a lot of them have submitted questions for you to answer tonight. So the first question is from Nick Rodriguez. Yeah! There he is.
All right.
Nick's question is, what are the individual musical qualities that Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators possess that made you choose them over all other musicians, and how do they contribute to your vision?
When I first met up with these guys, I didn't have any long-term plans to do like what we're doing now. So I met Miles to, basically to come sing on the solo record that had all the different singers on it. And I'd heard a lot about him, and he was one of the guys who wanted to audition for Velvet Revolver before Scott came into it. And he just never showed up. So I guess it was meant to be sort of the way it worked out. But so I worked with Miles, and Miles was just unbelievable. I mean, he's got this talent that's like from on high. It's like, so I asked him if he wanted to do a tour, which I was just thinking about because, I got this crazy record, but I have to tour. I can't do a record and not tour. So he signed on to do that, and then I went looking for drummers. And I was auditioning drummers who I already knew, basically. They're all good drummers, but trying to find the right guy for what it was that I wanted to do. And I was pointed in the direction of Brent Fitz, who I'd never heard of. And so I finally looked him up. I mean, I heard it from so many different people that were unrelated that I thought, I better check this guy out. So I was in Vegas, and I called him up. So he came down, and we played, and he was just like, it was like a dream. It was perfect. So I had a bass player at the time, and who I hadn't worked with, but I knew his records, and he was great on record, but in this context, it didn't seem to fit. And Brent goes, I know a bass player in Vegas. I was like, everybody knows a bass player. I mean, is he good? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody knows a bass player, but is he? And he goes, let me have him drive out here. I said, he'll drive out? That's, and so Todd Kearns showed up, and he's fucking amazing, and so we had week of rehearsal before the first show at the Roxy. So we had 30 some odd songs to learn, and Miles wasn't even there. Miles was only there for the last couple days, but it was just one of those things where it just clicked. I know this is taking a long time, but it just clicked, you know, and. So then we went on the road, and we were having a blast, you know, just jamming and all these shows. And the tour went from a couple months to a year. And so along the way, I was like, if I was going to do another record, I'd just do it with these guys. You know, but they're really great players, but they're real rock and roll guys. I mean, they know what they're doing, not because they studied it so much, even though they did, but they have a natural feel for it. And the most important thing, they just love to play, which is how I am. So we get along great. All we want to do is just jam. So it works.
All right, Pauline and Dave Bailey. We were lucky enough to see you get up on stage with Rose Tattoo at the Palace in St Kilda in 1993, the night before the Calder Park show. Do you have any memories of that particular gig?
Not specifically. I mean, I remember flashes of things. I remember it was, you know, a great show. I remember, you know, a lot of good stuff about it. But then at the same time, it's all very hazy. You know, we did a lot of partying. You know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I do.
All right, this question is from Jason Aiton. Talk me through how you write a song and the criteria if you think it is any good.
I don't know. I just you know, songwriting's a work in progress. So I just come up with some ideas, and one thing leads into another. There's no specific background that I need to, you know, have, environment I need to be in or anything. They just happen wherever. And then once I get onto a good lick and some good chord changes, and it starts to come together, I jam with Brent and Todd to sort of work up the rhythm to it. Also play it for Miles, see if he gets a melody for it, and it just happens, you know. Some easier than others.
All right, nice one. All right, Andrew Wong. Andrew Wong in the house? There he is. All right. I was a big fan of your first solo record with all the guest artists. Any chance you might do a follow-up, and who would you like to collaborate with this time around?
I get asked that a lot. You know, I don't have any plans to do a follow-up, but that doesn't mean at some point, you know, I might want to do it again. Or at some point, I might not want to do it again. I mean, I would. I just don't know when that is. I don't know who I would work with. There are definitely some people, you know, that I love and admire as vocalists. But on the last one, it was the music that dictated the choice of singer. So I would imagine it would be the same thing going into it. Maybe not. Maybe we'll do it differently. Maybe I'll just call up people and hang out and see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah. Can you mention any of those people that you admire?
No, because then I'll be beholden to it. You know? Yeah. I've learned a lot about what not to say. Yeah.
All right, Daniel and Rosie Eberger, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, over there. In the new song, 30 Years to Life, the song talks about sending a boy to hell and committing murder, and the lyrics portray a motive to carry out the crime. I heard this song is based on a true story. Did you personally know the person the song is about? And if so, could you tell us more?
All right. Well, I mean, Miles wrote the lyrics to that, and so he could give you a better detailed, you know, account of what he was thinking. But I do know that was inspired by something in the news, not by anybody that we knew. And it was more about how your life can be going one direction, and then within a second, it could change entirely. And that was just the subject matter that he used for sort of the idea.
Cool. All right. Steve Almanzi. There he is. There's two Steve Almanzis. Yeah. All right. Before forming Velvet Revolver, yourself, Duff, and Matt recorded a bunch of new songs with Buckcherry frontman Josh Todd on vocals. What became of those songs? Were any of them the basis for material that you've actually released?
The one song, let's see, Dirty Girl. Oh, no, not Dirty Girl. That's mine. Dirty Little Thing was the only song that was a holdover from that period. And there's an interesting story that goes with that song, because that was something that we wrote together, right? And then when we parted ways with Keith and Josh, we continued to do that particular song, but we took out some certain parts. but we kept one riff in, and then we got sued by some band that rehearsed next door to them. Anyway, it's just funny.
What happened to that lawsuit?
We'll just leave it at that. But then there was a song that we were rehearsing with those guys that was on their record that came after, and it was the big hit, the cocaine song or whatever.
Right, Lit Up?
He Lit Up, yeah. And I always thought that was a good song. But that's about it.